Welcome back to Taiwan Outlook. Joining us today is Her Excellency Vice President Anna Lu. Madam Vice President, there have been ups and downs in the bilateral relationship between Taiwan and the U.S. How do you see the current relationship between Taiwan and Washington, and what are the futures of it?
The common language is to maintain the status quo of the strait. The point is, what is status quo?
Yeah.
It's believed that the status means no independence, no force. But the fact is, Taiwan has been independent, with or without recognition. We have our constitution, we have our government and territory and people. However, PRC has been rapidly increasing their military power. They already demonstrate their determination to alter the status quo. For instance, most recently, they sent their missile to hit a satellite.
That's right.
Very obviously, they don't mind to invite international objection. So it's time, really, to urge the world leader to prevent anything from happening. The status quo means that Taiwan has been independent, respect Taiwanese willingness to develop ourselves, also to develop the relationship with China, with Japan, and with the rest of the world.
Yeah. Vice President, what you just said to me very crystal clear messages, but it appears to me that there are some misunderstandings on the part of the U.S. Do you think there is a miscommunication problems between the two governments?
Well, I wouldn't say misunderstanding, but that there might be some misjudgment of the situation, due to the fact that the high-ranking officials, both in Washington, D.C. and Taipei, cannot meet in person and discuss questions together. It wouldn't be surprised if certain kind of mistake or misunderstanding have been made in the past. Therefore, I really would urge a review of the policy, not to allow our high-ranking officials, including elected president, vice president, and premier, and the foreign ministers, to visit Washington, D.C., or not to allow the high-ranking official of the United States to visit Taiwan. Taiwan being so critical for the stability and the national interest of the United States, why not let both the leaders of the United States and Taiwan to meet together?
But in comparison, we've been seeing a very intensive and extensive context of high-level government officials between China and the U.S. in recent years. How do you see the rising or increasing number of contacts between the two governments?
That's the point. The rising or frequent meeting of leaders from Beijing and Washington is good. However, there's opportunity for high-ranking officials from Taipei to meet with Washington, D.C. is really a damage to Taiwan, making that only the staff of both governments can communicate with each other. So always a mistake or misunderstanding can be made. So I really urge our friend in the Capitol Hill or our friend in the United States to take this serious question, to ask your State Department to review the policy, to some degree allow and encourage your high-ranking official to come to Taiwan to take a look. You'll be surprised to see that Taiwan is one of the best friends of the United States.
But on the other hand, we are also seeing increasing cooperation between Japan and the U.S. in terms of security issues in the region. And we've been seeing strengthening of ties between, military ties between U.S. and Japan. How do you see this kind of cooperation between Japan and U.S. governments?
Well, because Japan and the United States are two allies closely work together, military, economically, and politically. We certainly would like to enhance our situation with Japan and with the United States. In particular, given the fact that the PRC is able to engage Taiwan in any emergency situation this year. And according to the Pentagon report, by the year 2010, they will be able to launch large-scale attacks against Taiwan. And by the year of 2015, they will be able to fight a decisive war against Taiwan. So Taiwan's status is getting critical and getting significant to the interest of United States.
But as we know that Taiwan has been a missing piece in this defense cooperation among the U.S. and its major allies in the region. How do you explain this kind of missing gap, piece in this defense cooperation in the region?
Well, I think United States and Japan should take it serious to see in what way that Taiwan should be embraced into this shelter for defense. Taiwan's geographical significance is very important. It's at the center of Northeast and West-East Pacific. It's also the hub of the world's biggest ocean, Pacific, and the world's biggest continent. So the geographical importance of Taiwan deserves more attention, and the active participation of Taiwanese leaders certainly is very essential for the maintenance of stability in this area.
But there have been some doubts in the U.S. about Taiwan's political will to defend herself. Do you think it's fair to say that Taiwan does not have the will to defend herself?
It's not a fact, at least not from the DPP's part. As the governing party, DPP worked very hard to earn the support from opposition. Unfortunately, Chairman Ma commanded his party to boycott all the bill, the arms procurement budget bill for nearly 7 years. So we feel so frustrated. Despite that, many the arms procurer, in fact, was requested by their administration when they were in power. Once they lost the power, they tried to boycott everything for a number of years. We really worry about that.
How will those, a boycott of the arms procurement budget affect the relationship between Taiwan and the U.S.?
Yeah, because failure of the support from the Congress to support the arms procurement budget would mislead some friend in Washington, D.C. to begin to doubt that whether Taiwanese people and the government are not willing to spend money for our national defense. So certainly it's not true. We work very hard. Please, if anyone who knows the Chairman Ma, please convince him to support the budget.
Let's put China into perspective. Some people in Taiwan believe that the best way to guarantee Taiwan security is to come to terms with the PRC. So there is no need to buy more weapons. You try to reach some sort of political deal with the PRC, so you don't have to buy weapons. Do you think that's a logical way to, explain away the concerns that some people may have?
For those who perhaps subconsciously identify China as their motherland, they wouldn't like to see money paid to fight against China. That's a psychological element. However, the fact has been that it's only PRC who, in the past decade, increased their military power, demonstrated their willingness and their determination to take over Taiwan military. So there's no reason not to support the government for national defense.
But we've been seeing opposition party leaders go into China and try to reach some sort of a deal with PRC. Do you think that serves Taiwan's interest, to have this kind of party-to-party dialogues or cooperations?
Well, Taiwan is a democratic and open society. Ever since the open policy to have exchange program between the two sides of the strait, no one, including the government, can really stop from anyone from going there. But the point is that it has been the tendency that those who have more linkage with China are those who are not that interested in supporting Taiwan's national security. That's really a psychological problem for Taiwan.
Yeah. But as we know that Beijing has been using this kind of so-called united front strategy, divide and defeat and divide and conquer. Do you think that China has been very successful in dividing Taiwan society and trying to defeat Taiwan?
It has been the case.
And how can we respond to that kind of tactics or strategies?
The best way is to have a good governance to show our people that Taiwan itself is beautiful. Taiwan is a nice country. That's the best way, according to me, the best way to build up the patriotism.
But as we know that some people seem to pay more attention to their partisan interest rather than the national interest. How can we convince those people or try to persuade those people to put national interest first?
Well, within a year, we are going to have another congressional election and also a presidential election. I think it's time really to see whether a good national leader can really convince the people to support a new government. And it's time also to have a new policy, a new vision for the people to
Do you
make
think
a
that
new choice.
cross-strait issue will be the key issue during the campaign, both for the legislative election and the presidential election?
I wouldn't say that's the only key issue, but that would be one of the key issues because people on Taiwan concerned a lot about domestic issues, including the crime, including social welfare, and our job employment. So cross issue would be just one of the issues.
Your party, Democratic Progressive Party's position on the cross-strait issue has been very clear and very consistent. However, in contrast, KMT's position on cross-strait issue seems to be somewhat ambiguous. How do you see the position taken by Chairman Ma on cross-strait relationship?
Well, he made it clear that unification with China is the final goal. So by the time when people cast the vote for our next president, it's time also for the people to demonstrate their willingness to see the result. I would say that's a final decision to see whether Taiwan should choose independence or reunification.
How about your party's position? Independence is the final goal. And,
DPP's party has been very clear that Taiwan has been independent. There's no need for us to take further action to clear for independence. Anyone who wants to change or challenge the independence of Taiwan, a referendum should be required.
But do you think that Taiwan should further push for this kind of de jure independence rather than just keeping the de facto independence?
I would say that Taiwan has been de facto as well as de jure independence because in 1996, the people in Taiwan were allowed to elect the national leader entitled president. It was self-evident because no candidate was running across the street to mainland China, nor any candidate sent from China to campaign here. So it was it's already self-evidence that Taiwan had been independent.
Is there any way that your party or yourself can come to terms with the so-called one China principle proposed by the PRC?
No, I would say Taiwan and China relationship are very unique. My diction says that the best way to define the Taiwan and China relation is we are relatives and we are neighbors as well. To be relatives and neighbors, there's no reason to resent and to fight against each other.
But do you rule out any possibilities for some sort of union with the PRC in the long-distant future?
Well, remember that China is a communist regime and Taiwan is democracy. So that's people decide, that people make choice. But according to recent and frequent poll, more and more Taiwanese identify strongly and clearly as Taiwanese rather than Chinese. And more Taiwanese would rather to see Taiwan maintain independence. So we don't know about 100 years later, but for the time being and in the near future, I have reason to believe that both the people on Taiwan and China to respect with each other and to let alone as government to take care of their own people.
Finally, with the rise of China, do you think that time is on our side or on China's side, in terms of this kind of democracy or even military security?
Taiwan is not going to take over China. So long as China maintain peaceful, there's no reason to discuss whether time is on which side. Let's all the leaders take care of their own people. That's the best way.
Madam Vice President, thank you very much for your very insightful and very enlightening remarks. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for watching Taiwan Outlook, and see you next week.